Okay, Greg, thank you very much for joining me on the Security Space podcast today. What we will be discussing is the similarities and differences between a SOC in the military and a SOC in the civilian world. But before we kick off, are you okay just to give a little bit of an introduction to yourself, if that's okay?
Yeah, sure. My name's Greg Morton. I'm the client lead manager at Bridewell. I got this role in January this year. I've been at Bridewell since March last year. I was there for a couple of months while still in the military. I retired from the Army in July 2023 after serving 23 and a bit years in the Royal Signals. Mostly doing telecommunications, moved into IT, and then for the last 7, 8 years of my career, worked in cybersecurity within the Army.
Okay, so we're very well placed to obviously get a good bit of information from both sides of the fence here. So to kick us off then, what does a security operations centre, what does it look like in the military?
It varies depending on where you are, and also what its actual job is. Within the UK, if you're doing fixed networks, each of the services have their own SOC, and then the MOD has its own SOC as well. And so each does its own little areas. The MOD tends to do all of the corporate networks that each armed force uses on the home base. So it's currently based at MOD Caution, and it's run by Defence Digital. Nice building, modern, cutting edge, you name it, it has, and it's got a lot of staff.
Yeah.
Then you move to the single services, so Army, Navy, Air Force. Each do it slightly differently. I can't really comment on the Navy and the Air Force, but the Army, I was working on building it out at Caution. But the building we was in at Caution compared to Defence Digital, it's generally known as the cow shed because we're the poorer cousins on that camp. But the training is second to none. The staffing is great because you're pulling from an experienced workforce already. Everyone joining the SOC was a good systems engineer, and then they get upskilled. But it has its issues and problems because of the nature of the beast, monitoring military networks. A lot of them tend to be air gapped, different security classifications. So then decisions have to be made as to what level you're monitoring at. If you're bringing in secret, top secret systems onto them, you have to monitor at that level. And for that then raises the security requirements for the lower systems because you're plumbing it into it. I mean, I wouldn't be able to work at home in my office here if I was monitoring a military network. So that's one of the differences. All the staffing has to be co-located on-prem, as it were.
Right, and you've hit the nail on the head with where I wanted to go with that one. So what are some of the key differences then between a military SOC and a civilian SOC? Then obviously one being you can't work from home, there's private networks that you need to go on site for. So what else would you say, Greg?
I think one of the big ones would be diversity of staffing.
Good.
So running the SOC in the military or in the Army, it was my SOC analysts were soldiers, and so you get an element of groupthink because they've all come through the military training, they're all trained soldiers, and so they think alike. Whereas outside the Army, it's a wider diversity pool, and so you also tend to be able to recruit in people with higher level qualifications. Not many people join the Army as graduates, as a soldier. If they go to the recruiting office as a graduate, they generally get funneled down the officer route and they go into leadership and management, not actually being a SOC analyst.
Yeah. So how do you actually combat then? Because I've spoken to lots of people, and getting a team of supposed not yes men. Well, actually, I'm going to say it. Yeah. If you get a team of yes men, it can be very detrimental for a team, can't it? And especially as a leader, how do you sort of get that diversity in a military SOC? Then how do you do it?
I suppose it works on how your management style is. When I was running the team, the guys and girls working for me had no drama whatsoever, telling me I was wrong or calling me out on anything. I generally worked on first name terms from myself down to the lowest rank on the team, because I found it worked better to have that informal relationship than what you would traditionally think of a military rank structure. But it was a case of, this is quite informal. However, if I suggest we do something, it's not really a suggestion. It's me telling you to do something, but in a polite way.
Well, that's my thoughts. 'Cause obviously, me being naive and not having that military experience, I assume that it's just like an authoritarian, like you don't question your superior. But like you say, that's quite refreshing to hear that the fact that like no, that's not how we did it. You know, it very much was a challenging culture, which you need not just a security team, but yeah, no, not just a SOC, but a security team in general to be quite challenging. Okay, yeah, no, that's really interesting. So. What are some of the similarities then between the two of like you say the Army SOC and the Civilian SOC? Then what's the main similarities?
I would say that the main similarity that I've seen is a desire to be there.
Okay.
I mean, cybersecurity is a big industry, as we both know at the moment. Pretty much every university has got cybersecurity courses. There's a load of people going through uni courses now, boot camps, wanting to come out and get into the industry. The military is the same. The Royal Signals has rebranded most of its trades as a cyber engineer, same as the RAF, and I'm not sure on the Navy, but cyber's a big selling point. You put that on your marketing and people get interested. So, but the armed forces are recruiting people under the banner of cyber engineer, and then it's got sub trades below that, which are the actual trades for the army. And then once they're in doing the job, we used to recruit internally. So they'd come down for an interview, we'd have a look at their potential, do some tests, interview them, and then bring them onto the team if we thought they had the potential to grow. And so people wanted to be on the team because it was an interesting job. They got some good qualifications out of it, and it was setting them up for a transition out of the military further down the line. And it's better than sitting around in barracks in the UK, sweeping garages, going through the usual rigmarole, day in, day out, going on exercising, spending weeks down in Salisbury Plain, or you can sit in a room and do network monitoring.
And this might be a really sort of another naive question, but is it still just a tiered system, a level 1, level 2, level 3 in the Army, as opposed to the civilian world, or is it different?
When I was there, bear in mind I left last year. We were structuring it in a way where it was tierless, just due to the staffing concerns, because we couldn't grow the SOC out to that level. The issue we had with the military was retention, trying to retain people and progress them from being tier 1 into a tier 2 analyst. It just wasn't happening. So the advantage was being government service, there was a large training budget, so we train people faster than what you would really get outside of the military in a civilian SOC environment. We'd throw training at people and then just use them for that return of service period, be it 2, 3, 4 years, because at that point they'd want to leave the military and go out and increase the salary. But because we trained them so quick into A level, we didn't want to waste them just being a tier 1 analyst, so they would do whichever. They were all capable of different levels, and even down to threat hunting straight away.
So with the training, is it practical training, or is it actually certifications that are available sort of like to the general public?
It's certifications. I mean, by the time I'd left the military, I'd had a stupid amount of training. I think is the only way to quantify it. I'm vastly overqualified for the amount of experience I've got. but it's one of them cases of we needed to build out the team, and so we all just went through the training at a fast pace and came out the other side with it. I think I was lucky in such a place that it was getting towards the end of my career. So at that time, I had, I think, about 15 years of working in IT, managing IT within the military. I'd just finished my master's in cybersecurity at York via part-time study, and then I got posted into help build the cyber protection teams, which is where the Army grew from. And so at that point, I had a background where I could go on a course and learn quickly, and then develop from that and build the team along.
Wow, okay, that's really good. And so talk to me a little bit about that transition, because obviously you've alluded to it quite a bit there in terms of obviously you get trained up, you get up to a decent, really good, decent level, and then like you say, you're ready to kind of like go out into the civilian world and get the salary that matches the skill set. So talk to me about that transition period of either yourself or some colleagues that you know. Is it a plain sailing transition period out there, or do people struggle finding work? So talk to me about the actual finding of the work first and foremost. Is it plain sailing or not?
For myself and the vast majority of the people who have been on my team, from what I've heard from them, it's been plain sailing. But that's because we, as a team, have got the experience and the qualifications that industry have been looking for. Yeah. I know that there's a lot of people who leave the military and want to move into cybersecurity, but they're lacking both the hands-on experience and the qualifications. So they're the ones going on the boot camps and coming through at the other side, struggling to find work.
So touching on that point then, like outside of the SOC and people, because I've spoken to people that leave in the military, why do they not have access to the same training budget that the SOC people do? Is there just not a need to train them up as fast within the military as other areas? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's money at the end of the day. It's the public purse. There's no justification for putting someone on a £7,000 SANS course if they're not working in a cybersecurity related post. Right. As could you imagine that on the front page of the Sun?
Yeah.
And that is the issue. It's getting better. I mean, the Royal Signals had a project to upskill their entire workforce called Project Caduceus, which allowed people to access training, CompTIA training. I think there was more ITIL, some project management, and it was because the Royal Signals was restructuring the trades. They had to get their existing workforce upskilled to where they wanted them to be. So a lot of people were going on courses that they hadn't had access to earlier on in their career.
Okay. It makes perfect sense. It's like from a business standpoint, it's supply and demand, really, isn't it? So okay. So moving forward from the transition piece, talk to me about the actual survival piece. Talk to me about the coming in from working in a military SOC to a civilian SOC. And I know that it's very much dependent on the organisation. Obviously, yourself have ended up in consultancy. There might be some people that end up in a bank SOC or whatever it might be. So what's your sort of trials and tribulations of moving in ability wise, how you match up compared to your peers? Talk to me on that front then, Greg.
Yeah, I think everyone suffers with imposter syndrome to a level or not. I mean, I've spoken about this with my boss at Bridewell. When I went for the interview for the client lead manager role and was successful, I was open about my imposter syndrome because there's multiple people at Bridewell who are very, very good. It's probably one of the most certified SOCs that I know of in the UK. And there's a good handful of people there who, on paper, blow me out the water. And it's like I can't hold myself up against them. Whereas really, I shouldn't be thinking that, because I've got 20 years experience being able to put cybersecurity into context around IT and how it works in business. But yeah, so moving across onto that, it was hard to an extent, because within the military, I had no one really to compare myself against. That part in my career and the rank I was at, there was no one that I could look at directly and weigh myself against, because it was a unique post and I was in, and it hadn't grown. I mean, now there's multiple people at that point in their career doing that role, but when I was there, I was running the team and growing it out, so it was hard to do. I came out and then suddenly I was a small fish in a big pond, but it was good to be able to weigh myself against my peers to judge my abilities against where I should be in my career.
So that that move into the client lead role, that promotion, was that the rejustification that you needed to get over your imposter syndrome, or was it something else?
No, I mean, we've discussed it offline. I've just had a 9-month stint acting as a security operations manager at one of the UK airports. I think that helped me, because it was 4 months after coming out of the military, and I was running the day-to-day security operations for a UK airport, and no planes fell out of the sky during my time there.
Yep.
So I classed that as a win.
Yep. Yeah. No, absolutely. I would as well. So what can a Army SOC learn from a civilian SOC? And I'll let you hit that two-sided. What can a civilian SOC learn from an Army SOC?
I'll start off with what a civilian SOC can learn from a military SOC, or it's what I miss. It's sometimes that rigid rank structure. So, I mean, whilst I said it wasn't rigid and I could be challenged, ultimately the responsibility fell to me. So after taking everything on board from what people were saying, if I told them to do something, that's how we did it. And I mean, there's a time and place for arguing, but during an incident, it has to be done. Do it, and just do it. So that's one thing I do miss, because playing nice has got its time and place, but sometimes if you're too busy, it just can't be done. But what the military can learn from a civilian SOC? I would say a lot of the work-life balance, as a lot of people within the military, due to the fact they were upskilling quickly and they were relatively young, because to get a SOC analyst, it was to be a certain rank, generally sergeant downwards, or even corporal downwards. So at that point, they were mid-20s and younger. If the soldiers were living on camp, they'd be in a single accommodation, or if they were married, in a quarter off camp. Those living on camp would generally go back to their rooms and carry on studying, or do something along them lines. Whereas the age of a SOC analyst can be anything from like fresh grad at 21 or younger if they're college apprentices, to 40, 50 if they're retrained. So you get that wider life experience, and people are happy being a SOC analyst. Whereas in the military, if you were a good SOC analyst, you would get promoted and you would no longer be allowed to be a SOC analyst, because your rank is too high. And so you get posted elsewhere to be generally something unrelated to cybersecurity whatsoever.
All right, that's really interesting.
Yeah, it got a little bit better as the posting staff up at Glasgow tried to keep people within a certain area to retain the skills. But what generally happened was if people got promoted and posted away from cybersecurity, they'd put their notice in and leave the army, full stop, and then go do it outside in industry.
Yeah, makes sense. That's yeah, I didn't know about that. Like the fact that they'd move them away from SOCs. Why would they not start moving them into threat intelligence or instant response? Like why would that not happen?
Due to their rank, because rank equals management within the military. We can't. It's a little bit better. Defence or the MOD have created UCM, which is Unified Career Management, and it's basically your job is just to do cyber security, and so they get put into that, and that's all they do. They move within that group, and also they get additional pay now. So that does reduce the draw of industry slightly.
I just feel like that's like a bit of politics and putting the handcuffs on them a little bit, like because you're already facing the financial layer of industry. You don't need to bring politics into it as well, which is a bit of a strange one. But yeah, like you say.
We raised this multiple times when I had soldiers who were getting posted out, going back to a normal role signals unit. They were telling me that if they went there, they're putting their notice in and leaving. And I fully support them because I've just spent 2 years and tens of thousands of pounds training them.
Yeah.
Just for it to be wasted.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So makes complete sense now why sort of like I say they come out into the civilian world. So yeah, like pretty much one of my last questions then, Greg, is can just a normal civilian who's worked at SOC, maybe they done L1, L2, do you think that they'd be able to transition easily into a military SOC because they've got the technical capability? But like, would they just need to learn about the military disciplines, or is it not as simple as that?
No, I think they would be able to because all of the SOCs that run within the UK are just a SOC in general. The further back from the front line you get, the more it's run like a civilian industry anyway. So the Defence Digital SOC at Corsham has civilian contractors within there already.
Yeah.
I think the Army SOC is looking to do something similar, and it allows that continuity of skills so that the soldiers can rotate through or come and leave. And then the contractors remain there, or the permanent staff if they're civil service or anything like that. It's only when you need staff in it, in like operational environments, like sending people out to defend networks for the army in Estonia, that you need people in uniform.
Yeah. I said that was my last one, but there's one last one. Say I'm because I like to finish on a little bit of a hypothetical scenario. So say I'm a SOC analyst, I'm level 1, I've just had my first week, and I come to you for a bit of advice. Like, look, I want to be a SOC team lead in a few years. What advice would you give me to climb the ranks? Like, what exposure do I need to get? What tools do I need to work on? What certifications, if I need to get them? What sort of environment should I put myself in? What would your advice be to me?
If they want to be a team lead or move into the management, I don't think it's tooling or actual technical ability. It's people management, being able to listen to people. I always got told to focus more on active listening, or try and improve your emotional intelligence, because to get the best out of the staff, you have to understand where they're going. And with the actual management abilities, I think one of the more interesting courses I've done was a SANS strategic leadership course. I think it's Leader 514 now. And it opened my eyes to how to build security for the wider enterprise rather than being focused on the tool set and the technicalities. It's an understanding of the business, and that's what you need to do to align security to the business objectives.
Nice. Nice. No, some really good advice there. And yeah, that brings us to time, Greg. So thank you very much for jumping onto the Security Space podcast. If anybody has any questions for Greg, anything at all regarding SOC related or just his transition out of the military, then I'll be sure to put his information down below. But yes, Greg, once again, thank you very much for joining on the podcast, mate.
Welcome. Cheers, Nick.